welcome along. Fantastic, great to see you, and lots more people going to be joining, so we'll let them in just a second. Welcome along to getting back into the workplace, and I'd really like, first of all, to introduce Sarah as the recruitment expert. I've already put that, there you go, I've already set you up already, Sarah, but I wonder if, Sarah, if you can take 30 seconds to introduce yourself, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks, Keith, for inviting me to speak with you today. Just a bit of background. I've worked in recruitment now for, 22 years. I own 2 recruitment companies, so I've seen pretty much, I think I've seen everything recruitment-wise, but then every day you see something new. But I appreciate that it's a tough market out there when you are job searching, especially in the sales field. You know, some people may have found themselves in this situation for the first time ever. And hopefully today we can have a bit of an open forum to discuss any concerns, any queries, and to give you some tips on what I would consider to be, you know, the surefire way to get your CV to the top of the pile, basically, and get you back out working.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to make you a co-host there. Do you want to change the host? Yeah, okay, we'll do that. And fantastic. Thank you very much, Sarah, for investing the time in this webinar. It's really, really helpful. You made a really good point, actually, that you know, back when I started in the workplace, even back then, which wasn't really that long ago in terms of corporations or whatever, there was still a point in time that you could have a job for life, if you've ever heard that expression, and clearly those days are pretty much long gone. The exception of the civil service maybe, but even then you do loads of different jobs in your career in the civil service. So there are going to be loads of people who find themselves on the job market through no fault of their own, through the terrible effects of COVID-19. And first of all, I've been there several times in my career. It does dent your confidence. So if you're feeling that way, I have to say that is normal. You should not feel worried necessarily about feeling that way. It is normal, but and I can't necessarily help you with you know, feelings of anxiety or whatever. But what I think Sarah and I can do on this call is just give you some, shall we say, confidence, some top tips to just get going. Perhaps reboot your job search efforts, and as we go through this call, I really hope we're going to sort of, you know, switch on a few light bulbs, get you to really think about your job search activities and kind of why you're doing this. Now, I will be checking the chat box every now and again for questions, but what I would say is around about 40 minutes into this, we are going to switch over to a Q&A session. So I would say if you have any sort of really burning questions, could you leave them until the Q&A session, and please do ask them. Please don't be shy. This is all about you actually, and providing some value to you. So we're going to crack on, if that's okay. We're going to be switching over from Sarah and I from time to time as we've kind of prepared this. So once again, in the chat box, if you haven't already, please do enter your name, your location, your sort of the role that you're kind of searching for, or the role that you last did, and where you currently score yourself on the job search sort of confidence level, if you like, between 1, which is not confident at all, and 10, I'm really confident, in which case I'm questioning why you're on here. But anyway, let's move on. So the expectations, what are we covering today? Number 1, what kind of role you're looking for, because that's really important. And Sarah, I think you'd agree that if someone's saying, well, I just want a job, you know, I don't really care what it is, that's probably not very helpful, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, so, you know, I suppose what I'd like to achieve today is to get you on plan, get you a plan, because searching for a job is a full-time job. It's not easy. It can be very, very challenging. It can be very, very daunting. But somebody saying, I want a job doing anything with anybody is really, really difficult for a recruiter and a company to interpret. So you need to write yourself a plan, basically. So you need to start at the very beginning. I know it sounds very, very basic, but yeah, you need to start at the beginning, and you need to think about what it is you want to do, what it is you can do, and where you're going to go from there. So simple as that. That's where I start.
Great. Okay, so what I would call specificity. Be specific about what you're searching for. So we're going to cover that. We're going to talk about your LinkedIn profile, because I think that's key here. And some people may not even have a LinkedIn profile, or if they have got it, they did it years ago and they've not really looked at it since. That's going to be important to you. We're going to talk about updating your CV, a covering letter if required. Not everyone requires a letter, but some do, particularly more senior roles. We're going to talk about what employers are currently looking for, how to present yourself at interviews, and do's and don'ts, and then that Q&A session at the end. Okay, brilliant. So the role that you're looking for is be specific. So if you're a project manager, what kind of projects have you managed in the past? Are they technology projects? Are they HR, organizational development type projects? Be specific, because it may well be that you did some projects 10, 15 years ago. They may still be relevant, but they may not be relevant as well. So I think employers are probably more interested in what you were doing last Friday afternoon in terms of your work than what you were doing 10 years ago. So it's your currency, how relevant and how current are your skills in that particular area. I think also you've got to make it easy for the recruiter. So Sarah, you must be looking at CVs, job applications just all day long. So I wonder if there's, and we will come on specifically to CV, posing this question rhetorically, if you like. You've got to make it easy for the recruiter. Don't, yeah. Sarah, do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, so, you know, we are incredibly fortunate that, you know, we see lots and lots of CVs and we have lots of applicants. The key at the moment that I would like to impress on everybody is the time. So if you've got a wonderfully worded covering letter and a wonderfully worded CV, people, including the end client, so recruiters first and foremost, but the end client also, they don't have time at the moment to read chapter and verse of your beautiful CV. So if I was having this conversation 12 months ago, I would probably be saying something a little bit different to what I am now. So in this market right now, you've got to make it really simple. You've got to be, it's got to be bullet pointed. It's got to look pleasing to the eye, because you've probably got about 7 seconds to make an impact. So what recruiters are looking for is for you as the applicant to make our lives a little bit easy by saying who you are, what you do, and what you want to do. Absolutely. In the first opening paragraph.
Absolutely. So that's what I call, that's a really key point there. You've got about 7 seconds, that's all. And that's what I would call a poke in the eye. You've got to, what's going to poke that recruiter or that hiring manager in the eye that says, oi, this is me, here I am, the best thing since, etc. But you've got to make that impact. Okay, right. So some of what you're searching for is going to be a combination of what are you passionate about? What are you great at? So think about that as we kind of move forward for you as well. And for those of you that have an opportunity, I don't know, maybe maybe you've got an opportunity to reflect a little bit. Maybe you know, frankly, being on the job market is an opportunity in itself to think about what you really do. I know it was for me a few years ago, not uncomfortable being made redundant, but actually when I look back on it, it was an opportunity to think about, where do I want my career to go? I would never have been able to have that time if it wasn't for, you know, if I was still working, because working, managing a home and all of that entails is very difficult. So it was an opportunity to reflect. So I would encourage you, if you can, reflect on that. Okay, right. So I just want to come on to LinkedIn Brilliant Basics. First of all, this is only a smattering. I've got a webinar on this in 2 or 3 weeks' time. If you follow me on Eventbrite, and a few of you do, I'm going to dedicate an entire session to Brilliant Basics and creating a brilliant profile. But in a nutshell, your LinkedIn profile is fairly similar to your CV. it needs to have a great profile shot, not a glamour shot, but what you look like in the workplace. Will we recognise you in reception? So it's not you at a party, not you on your wedding day or with your grandchildren or something like that. However lovely they are, it's professional. It's got to be you, more or less. As Sarah and I sit on screen now, with your face taking up about a third to a quarter of the screen, your photo and your about on your LinkedIn profile, that's the poke in the eye, but that's what's going to grab people's attention. And you've got to be specific about what you're searching for. And so the recruiter can go, yes, I want one of those, or nope, swipe left, or whatever the expression is. Okay, so your headline, does it add value? Is it really specific? Does it sell you and your abilities? What your current position is, make sure there are no gaps. Now, my wife is an HR director, and I asked her about this in the past. What if there are gaps? And she said, I assume people have been to prison. I'm just going to pause for that, because it's really important. You would not believe, and give us a nod, Sarah, if this is true, or shake your head. But if you see gaps on someone's CVs, it just raises questions about, and they're unhelpful questions. You want people to, Sarah?
Yes. Sorry to interrupt on that point. And also, at the moment, if somebody's got 5 CVs in front of them, and 4 CVs have no gaps in the work history and 1 does, what they will do is just put it aside, because they don't have the time or the inclination to go back and question that. So automatically there is a barrier. So what you need to do is, no matter what the gap was for, if it was looking after, I've got a candidate that I'm working with at the moment that's taken a career gap because she's looked after a mother who's been ill for 6 months. Just put it on the CV. If you don't put it on the CV, you might not get the interview. You need to put it on there because it's a fact. We're dealing with facts, and that's what our client and that's what our recruiter wants to say.
Absolutely, that's a really great point. So, I guess having a load of, what would you say, Sarah, is the average number of applicants for a job these days?
Right, so as an organisation, we were seeing about 4,000 CVs a day. Prior to, we've got multiple divisions here, so we're not a massive organisation, but we do, we've been trading now for a number of years, so we have that amount of attraction in terms of our candidates. We are seeing at least 2 times that now. So we are seeing in excess of in between sort of 9,000 and we've peaked at 12,000 CVs a day. Some of these CVs are multiple CVs, and luckily we have the technology to be able to notice what is a duplicate CV, because some people would, they apply for multiple jobs, but sometimes the end user, the clients don't have that. So, I speak to clients every day that are inundated at the moment. So it is about speed of and proficiency of reading the information that's presented to them.
So you've got to make it easy, in other words.
You've got to make it easy for them. You really have.
Human nature as it is, and who can blame them? Because the recruiter's job is to find the right person for the client. That is job one. And so human nature would say, okay, well, let's remove the unsuitable candidates. And so if you've got gaps, I'm majoring on this because you wouldn't believe how many CVs have gaps, and LinkedIn is the same. And I got to tell you, having hired many salespeople in my past, sometimes I don't even look at the CV. I go straight to LinkedIn. What are they doing online? Because that tells me more about you than a CV. Okay, so LinkedIn is absolutely vital. I'm going to speed on now. Now, if I may, I'm going to hand over to Sarah, who's going to talk about updating your CV.
Okay, so there's some fundamental points here. The first thing is the structure of a CV needs to, there's some do's and don'ts with a CV basically. So the first thing is make sure that you start with your most recent history at the top and you work your way backwards. So the format of a CV, and guys, I can share a template with you all at the end of the webinar, so I can share all that with you and you can populate this. But I would like to see a personal profile written by you, not by a third party, but by you. So I am this, I am that, I would like to do this, I think my skills are that. The most important thing that I find on a CV is key skills and achievements. So if you have reduced your company department budget, spend by $1 million, say it. Don't be afraid of the facts. And I think a lot of people shy away from the actual hard-hitting facts of what they've done and how they've contributed. And I think now it's more important for applicants to really think about that. What have I actually achieved in that company? Because sometimes you just go to work and you do a job and you think, actually, what did I actually do there? So now is the time to really sit down and deconstruct your CV. Think about what are my key achievements and what are my key skills? Are you, were you the go-to person for a particular type of data? Have you worked to sales targets and have you delivered against those targets for the last 10 years? So I would like the profile, key skills and achievements, and then I would like the companies, working my way backwards. I'd like the name of the company, the date, then a brief synopsis of what that company does. If they're a multi-million-pound turnover company with head office in Denmark, put it on there. Again, it makes it easier for the client to see at what level you've worked at and what the company does, because they might not naturally resonate with the company that you have lived and breathed and worked for the last 10 years. They might not know what this company does, and it might be the largest corporate conglomerate in the world, but they might not know that. So a little tiny, can be 10-word sentence of what the company does, and then you bullet point your duties. And then you start again. So you work your way backwards. It's really important that there's not too many long sentences in all of this. I call it cutting out the waffle. So, I format CVs every day, and I will sit down with my candidates and say, that's waffle, that's waffle, that's waffle, that's waffle. If there's a word that you don't have to say, don't say it. Just get it out, make it clean, make it concise. Again, if there is gaps, qualify your gaps. And at the end of the CV, I would like to see qualifications, education, and then finish it off with, some people really, really like to put on that. Again, it's length of CV. Some people used to say 2 pages. I'm not necessarily of that school of thought. I would say 3 I'm comfortable with. Anything over 3 is too long. But it's the first page that makes me want to turn the page to page number 3. So if you don't get page number 1 right, you may as well have a page. You may as well have a CV of 20 pages, because you're not going to get somebody to turn that page anyway. So the first page is the most critical and impactful thing that you can put your time and your effort into. The other thing that the other point I would like to make is you're probably going to have 5 or 6 CVs. Minimum. So each CV needs to be tailored to the job, and that can seem quite, an arduous task when you're thinking, oh my God, but you've got to do it. And if you do it and you take the time, it might only take 10 minutes to tailor your profile in terms of what you're looking for, or your key skills, can't get the words out, sorry, but your key skills in terms of what the key skills that they're looking for on the job spec. If you just tailor that because you think I can do that, I can do that, I can do that, and I've done that, and I've done that, and I've done that. If it's not on your CV, they don't know. So take the time to do that rather than sending a specific CV for a generic job. Make it be an application for that role that you are looking to get. So that's in a nutshell, really. So if I was going to recap, make sure you don't waffle too much and take out the rubbish. Make sure the format is what you would expect it to be impactful, put actual stats into your CV, especially from a sales point of view. If you've achieved a target, then talk about it. If you've made money, talk about it. Don't be afraid of doing those things.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Sarah. I'm going to talk about something now that I've observed. I worked in New York a few years ago, and they are much more comfortable in, certainly New York, probably throughout the United States, talking about their achievements. And we in Great Britain tend to be a bit more reserved. We would call that bragging, and bragging is rude and vulgar and all of those things. But the one time in your life where you have permission to, shall we say, I'm going to call it bragging because there's a way to do it without it seeming showing off. You can be matter of fact and talk about your achievements. That the one time is when your CV. Don't forget, if you don't do it on your CV, you won't get a chance at interview anyway. So your CV is absolutely your sales document as to bringing you to life and bragging. And I loved what you said, Sarah, about, I think stats was the word that you mentioned. Numbers for me, being in sales, contextualize. They give lots of impact to the hiring manager. Did you work in a 10-person company? Because that sometimes is more important than working in a 700-person company or a 7,000-person company. Your operating context, the environment that you were working in. So numbers. Did you save your company money? If so, how much? How long did it take to deliver? It just enriches your story and brings it to life for the employer so that they can make a more informed choice. So just think about numbers and don't be shy, mention them. Now, if you are in sales, I would also mention something that not everyone has come across this, something called a deal sheet. So now, a deal sheet is basically all the deals that you've negotiated, not necessarily all, but the ones to highlight, if you like, key achievements with companies and the employers that you worked for at the time. So, maybe you worked for Hewlett Packard and you sold a deal into a particular bank. Now, you've got to be a little bit careful because you don't want to give away too much information. You certainly don't want to reveal specific client names, but you might want to say, I worked with the IT director at, I don't know, RBS or NatWest or something like that, and we closed a PC deal. People were buying desktop PCs for £1 million. So that would appeal on a deal, and that's what I mean by being specific. I closed a deal with that company for that much money, and I worked with the people at this level to do that, and that more information, appropriate information for a hiring manager to say, yes, this is the kind.
On the other side of that, Keith, I mean, even if you work in a contact centre or in a shop, make it specific. So if you're in a contact centre, how many calls were you answering a day? How many complaints were you dealing with? If you were part of the escalation team, what did that escalation team look like? Did you work in a team of 4 or was it just you? Was you responsible for managing people? How many? Because so many people put on a CV managing and looking after a team, but they don't put on how many, how large that team was or how small that team was. So whenever you are putting something on a CV, make it factual and make it mean something. So you're managing a team of how many? If you're answering calls in a contact centre, how many calls a day? How many calls a week? So just make it, just ask yourself how many. If you can apply that, then put it in your CV.
Yeah. Now, Candace, this is unusual for me. I've managed to get on top of the chat box, but Candace has put something about you've attended lots of, Candace is in law, immigration law in particular, and you've spent much of lockdown attending webinars on immigration law. So that's another key point. Have you kept yourself current? Are you, because if I'm a hiring manager, and I have been in my corporate career, I want to see that people are taking an interest in the world, frankly. What's going on? Can you talk about current affairs? Do you know what's going on, particularly in the business sector that I'm involved in? What the latest developments in technology are? If you're in immigration law, do you know what's going on at the Home Office at the moment? Can you talk with authority on your subject? And are you using your time wisely, investing in yourself? So if you've done that, I would absolutely reference that. It is. So I'm going to talk about shame, and I might be clumsy with that word, but sometimes if you've been unemployed at all, or for an extended period of time, and many people have, millions of people have throughout lockdown, then you might be getting to that point where you're really uncomfortable. You've got to stay focused, be positive, show people that you are still investing in yourself, taking an active interest in your world, so to speak. Now, if you've written articles, as Candace has done as well, then I would include, I don't know how you feel about this, Sarah, but in your CV, when you're talking about how you spent the last 6 months, I include a URL.
Yeah.
The article that I wrote. I wouldn't reproduce the article because it would be too long, but I would say I wrote this article on some specific aspect of immigration law, and I would reference that. Now, someone else, I can't remember the name. Someone else is in the world of sales. Welcome. If you've made a LinkedIn post about the world of sales in the operating context that you're in, I would reference that as well in your CV in the most appropriate place, but ideally on page 1, because I think first of all it's going to be in a different color. It's going to be in that blue color for a URL if you reproduce it correctly, and people are going to see it straight away. It's a way of making you stand out, your CV stand out, a little bit of color. Okay, right. So right now we're going on to. So we've got a CV, we've updated it. God, we've got lots of information going on here. I want to talk about interview, and I'm looking Sarah in the eyes there now. Can I just ask you, Sarah, some, and I've got some howlers. We probably haven't got too much time to run into now, but interviews. We are in a different world now. They can be in person. They can be like now online. Can I ask you to pick this subject up?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, an interview, you never get a second chance to make a first impression, as they say. And it's all the more challenging today because we're doing it on a different platform. Some people aren't used to the world of technology and Zoom interviews. I mean, we use a platform called Odro, you know, so you've got another challenge there because if your internet goes down or you haven't got the link, so the world of interviewing, because let's face it, if you were going to go and get a job, you would have an appointment, you'd know where you were going, you'd get the address, you'd know who you was going to see, and you would walk through the doors of a building. It's not, the world may not be like that today, so you've got to prepare yourself mentally and physically in a completely different way, but preparation is the key. So if you don't prepare, then, you know, I mean, I've had instances where people have turned up to see me and thought it was a different company, didn't know who we were. I've had people that turned up a day late because they didn't get the date right. So, you know, all of these things, even more so now when job opportunities aren't as readily available as they were, and there's maybe more people on the market, you've got to make sure that you're using every opportunity to prepare for these interviews. Now, you know, the good thing about the technological world that we're in right now is things are happening a little bit quicker than they were before, because we're not necessarily going into companies that have to book a parking space and book a meeting room, you know, and have 3 managers in a room together, because that doesn't happen. So technology is making the world a more reactive place and a quicker place to carry out these operations. So that's a positive, but you have to be readily available. And I go back to the point that this is a full-time job. Looking for a job is a full-time job. So you have to be available when a client wants to speak to you. Knowing who you're seeing, so do your research. You know, the world is such a small place today because of technology. I would fully expect any candidates of mine to know exactly who the company is, exactly what they do, to have linked in or even looked at the profile of the person that's interviewing them and followed the page of the company on LinkedIn, because that is so readily available. I mean, years ago, we didn't have any of that. We used to, you know, crank up the World Wide Web. So you can use all of these wonderful, you know, pieces of technology to your advantage. So, you know, make sure you know what you're doing, where you're going, and you leave time. So I used to be saying to people, make sure you do a recce, get in the car, make sure you know where you're going, make sure that you've planned for traffic. Don't need to do that today if you're carrying out an interview virtually, but you do need to make sure that you're in a quiet area, that you've got a URL, you know, you've got a link to the meeting, that you know who you're going to be interviewed by. And also, don't be sitting in your pajamas. You know, you've got to, yeah, you would be surprised, but, you know, make sure that you're dressed for an interview. And because it's like anything, if you are dressed in a certain way, you will conduct yourself in a better way. So, you know, they're just little basic things, I suppose. And also, you know, if you are carrying out a virtual interview, you can have prompt cards around you. So I always say to my candidates, a real good tip that I say to everybody that's carrying out a virtual interview is get post-it notes and physically put them around your screen. So take some time, again, it's all in the preparation. If you think, right, I've read the job description and there's a really good point that I want to make here, because it says they want somebody that's dealt with conflict, or, you know, dealing with a change management program. Write down change management program and the point that you want to make. So, you know, whereas you couldn't, in a face-to-face situation, you know, some of my candidates don't like to sit down and be flicking through a book and go, oh, actually, I wanted to tell you this, because it doesn't flow naturally. But now you've got the opportunity to put these prompt cards around your screen, so you can actually, you know, present yourself and make sure you get your point across. The other thing that I would say in terms of interviewing is don't be afraid of recording yourself and sending a small recording with your CV saying, hi, my name's Sarah, I've recently been made redundant, but I've worked in sales for the last 5 years. My last job was working for this company, and I understand that you might be recruiting. Please look at my CV and I'd love to hear from you. So we've got a piece of technology that does that for us, but you can record that on your phone. You can record that on your phone. And, you know, again, that's better than a CV in some you know, examples, because you've got their attention. They're not going to look at you and think, oh, you've got a gap in your CV, bye. You know, they're not going to do that, because they can see how you're coming across. They can see that you've done something a little bit different as well. So I would always say, you know, there's an opportunity here to do something a little bit different in this market.
And how would you get that video to the recruiter or employer? When does that happen?
Yeah, so if you're dealing with a recruitment company, so a lot of recruitment companies are actually using this method now to get their candidates to stand out from the crowd. So the first things first is I would be speaking to your recruitment consultant and say, is this a platform and is this a method that you use? If you are applying for a job, I would almost put it in my covering letter. So I put it in my covering letter. I've prepared a short video introducing myself, and you could put a link on there if you're sending it electronically, in which they can click on the link. I mean, I have known candidates who have applied directly that they've got the direct email address and they've recorded, you know, a video and sent it across as well. You know, every situation and every job and every company and every application is going to be different, but there's some really quirky, amazing things going on out there at the moment.
Okay, and much of this is going to be making you stand out, so they kind of take notice of you.
Yes.
Fantastic. What I would also say is that in my career, and I'm sure a number of you can relate to this, there are 3 things that can mess up a presentation or an interview, because an interview is a presentation of sorts, is young children. If young children are around, can't help that, but maybe you can manage the situation. Animals, nobody wants to see your cat jump up on your laptop, although this is real life, it's not helpful. And technology, and having spent a lifetime working in technology, I can assure you that technology can really trip up your presentation. So if it's a Zoom call rather than in person, make sure you log on early, 5-10 minutes early, because sometimes the IT systems need to, I'm going to call it, settle down. And also the link may have broken, your PC. I mean, just before I came on the call, my laptop wanted to do some updates. They're like declined. Don't ever do that, by the way. Don't ever update your laptop just a few minutes beforehand. Don't do that. And also when you're in the interview, if you were there in person, you would be looking at the person's face and probably looking them in the eyes most of the time. You wouldn't be looking away, looking up, looking down. Now, when you're in, and sometimes you have to practice this to get it right, but when you're in a Zoom call, I'm looking into the camera now, and it probably appears to you that I'm looking into your eyes, or certainly looking at your face. But the fact is, my screen is slightly above my camera, and I'm looking at Sarah now. But if you're looking at me on your screen now, I'm looking up there somewhere. So look into the camera especially when you want to make a point, when you want to land a message about something that you've achieved. It's going to have much more impact doing it like this than if I look up there and think I'm looking at you, whereas I'm not really. I'm looking up into the sky. So look into the camera to land that point. Again, that's about making an impact at interview, and it's making it much easier for that person to get all of you. Very hard to replicate that over a video link than it is face to face. So just again, some pointers around. I love the idea, Sarah, about prompt cards, and I'm going to shamelessly steal that in future, if that's all right with you.
1,000,000%.
So post-it cards, I love that, because when you're in the moment, when you're you know, in the heat of the moment, even as a seasoned salesperson, you don't always remember what points you want to make. Give yourself every advantage by making a post-it around, and don't necessarily just state the facts. Ask yourself, so what? So what? I managed a team of 20 people. Try and bring that to life by making a point. You know, making a point that, you know, maybe the average company in that sector has 25 people doing that kind of organizational, but you can do it with 20 people, so you can save 20% of the budget. You're much more effective at getting people to produce. That's the difference between stating a fact and making a point. So a big subject, and we'll cover that on another session, but make points rather than stating just facts. Now, can I just ask something else while we're talking about interviews, Sarah? Given the operating environment that we're in, what about shaking hands?
Well, absolutely not at the moment. Yeah, so I mean, it is difficult because we've spent our professional life shaking hands with people, and I did it the other day, and you sort of walk into a room, I mean socially distanced that is, because we are having face-to-face interviews conducted now socially distanced, and I walked into a room the other day, and it's like an uncomfortable, you don't quite know what to do with yourself, but I would always broach that. My advice would be to broach that and say, hi, I'm Sarah. I would normally shake your hand now, but I know that protocol says I can't do that. So if ever you're in a situation in an interview, and I always say this in any situation, if somebody asks you a question that you don't quite know what they mean, say, sorry, I didn't understand that. Can you just clarify? Or don't be afraid to clarify anything, or don't be afraid to say, you know, I know it sounds daft, I really enjoyed that interview. When will I know the outcome? So it's a conversation. I mean, the amount of people that I've interviewed that have misunderstood a question that I've asked, and they haven't clarified, and have gone off on such a tangent. I think, oh, that's such a shame, because you didn't understand what I meant. And I say, hang on a minute, let's go back. But again, it's like handshaking. I would always tackle that, because you don't want it to be like the elephant in the room, so to speak, because you've walked in and all of a sudden everybody's socially awkward, because you don't know whether you should be banging elbows, touching fists, shaking hands. But, you know, at the moment you just can't do it, can you? Because, you know, it poses a bit of a challenge.
Indeed. If it helps, and I've replaced that. I don't have that many face-to-face meetings at the minute anyway, but I've actually, as human beings, it's almost muscle memory to reach out and shake someone's hand, even though we kind of know that we shouldn't at the minute. So I've replaced it with something else, which I find helps me, and it serves two purposes. First of all, you're absolutely right, Sarah. You actually verbalise. I know we should be shaking hands, but we can't do that. So I actually tell people, I put my hand up, so rather than shaking hands, I put my hand up. It does two things. That stops them coming any closer to me, which is that kind of gesture, but also it's representative of a handshake. And I say at the same time, I know we shouldn't be shaking, we should be shaking hands, but we can't do that at the minute. So I'm really pleased to meet you. I'm Keith, blah, blah, blah. And then you can carry on the meeting from there. And you've replaced that handshaking gesture. And as a bit of an aside, if anyone's curious, why do we shake hands? It was because back in, several hundred years ago, you needed to be sure that the person opposite you didn't have a weapon, a sword or a flintlock pistol in their hands. And so you showed them your right hand generally, and you shook hands, and that proved that you didn't have a weapon in your hands, and that's why we do it. So actually COVID-19 has probably given us the opportunity to not do that. And if you're anything like me, even when you've shaken hands with someone pre-COVID, almost the first thing I do when I left a meeting was go out and wash my hands, because just not right. Anyway, so so the point being is don't. Even if they put their hand out to you, please stay safe. That is the most important thing. And you're showing a leadership position by saying, I know we shouldn't, but we should, here we are. Anyway, okay, so I kind of feel I've exhausted the handshake thing to death. To just kind of make that point. So what I'm coming on to now, and we're a couple of minutes late for this, but I feel there's been some fantastic content. God, I wish I'd known this 10 years ago when I left the corporate marketplace. So thanks, Sarah. What I'm going to ask now is, we've got a few people on the call. I'd really like some specific questions. I know we're British, so no one likes asking the first question. Can I invite you, if you want to either put a question in the chat box, and I'll try and bring it up now, or to come off of mute if you're comfortable doing so, and come off of mute and ask a question kind of out loud to Sarah or I. And I'm going to look, and because we're in the UK, people are always uncomfortable about doing this. So if
hi Keith, Sandy here. I'm quite happy to ask a question. This is probably more perhaps for Sarah maybe than yourselves, but obviously interested with both of you. Yeah, don't want to upset either of you. So just doing some research online, it seems that a lot of people are saying that you need to have your CV sort of keyword optimized, because it suggests that a lot of companies, due to the volumes of CVs that they receive, use almost like computer to filter some of those CVs out. What does that actually mean that I have to do in terms of my CV? Is it just kind of trying to match, as you talked about a little earlier, some of the things that I've done to the job requirement itself, or is there something specific that I should be looking to do?
Well, they say in terms of, job boards, they change their algorithms daily, which is a pain really for people like you and I who are trying to get our people to the top of these lists. And so, in terms of having your CV keyworded, what that would mean is you have to have the same word in your CV 5 times for it to be picked up. So I have heard this, and I've got a client that's got a piece of technology, but they've overridden that because they were losing some really, really good candidates. So again, Andy, to answer your question, I don't know the answer to this in perfect honesty, because it seems very, very silly, because they could have the best person ever for the job that hasn't got senior project manager in their CV 5 times. Yeah. But they're the senior project manager for the job. So I couldn't say whether I would give that advice, but again, it depends on, this seems to apply to maybe large corporate organisations that have got a multifaceted recruitment platform where they are hiring tens of hundreds of people, rather than recruiting specifically for that one position. So if it was me and I was writing my CV, I'd be looking at what's the company, what's the recruitment process, who is it that's advertising, how are they asking me to apply? Are they asking me to apply online? Are they asking me, I put out an ad for one of my clients, and I had 250 CVs, and I clearly put in the job spec in the brief, I'm not accepting CVs for this role. I want you to phone me. Yeah. And I had 3 phone calls.
Right, okay.
I had 3 phone calls. So it's very, very hard to answer that, Andy. Mm-hmm. Again, what could you do if it was a large company and it was a senior project manager's role? Then I would probably put it in there 5 times, but make sure that I was reading the criteria of how to apply more than anything, because that is a task in itself.
Brilliant.
It really is a task in itself.
Excellent, thank you.
That's a great question, Andy, is there any way to game the system, so to speak? And it sounds like if they're changing their algorithms every day to suit themselves, then probably not. Now, what I would also say is that LinkedIn is an incredibly powerful tool. And often when roles are advertised, either on LinkedIn or otherwise, it'll put who the job was posted by, who the perhaps even who the hiring manager is. So LinkedIn being a powerful research tool, and Andy, I'm sure you're on there, I'm sure you know how to use it inside out, but you might just find that you know someone that's connected to the person that posted it, and it just might be the opportunity for you to use your initiative and have a conversation with the hiring manager or whomever to just get yourself in their consciousness, because I think that's actually what counts. We can talk about all of the different various tools, but what you want to be top of their mind. You want to stand out. That's a way of standing out. But Sarah also mentioned the number one thing to do is actually read and understand what the hiring process is. So, if it says phone me if you want to chat, I would absolutely do that. But understand what the process is and what it isn't. So great question. Thank you for asking. Is there Candace, not shaking hands shows that you can follow the rules and listen to guidelines so that you can read and comprehend, and that's kind of really important. Right, if there aren't any questions, then no problem. But we have got another 10 minutes or so of Sarah's time, so I'm really keen.
Oh, guys, just while we're talking, I mean, if there's anybody really struggling at the moment, I don't mind doing a bit of a one-to-one after the session. If you want to send me a copy of your CV, I mean, I'll kindly look over it and give you my points for you to take away and to see whether that might help you. So more than happy to do that, guys, if anybody needs any help.
It's really kind.
Yeah, I'd love to take you up on that, Sarah.
Yeah.
I'm at the moment, I'm still in a role, but it's probably looking precarious, probably just the other side of sort of the new year, which is why I'm sort of beginning to look.
Okay.
I have applied for a couple of roles over the last month or so, which when you looked at the job profile and what I do now appeared to be almost identical, but I didn't even get to the point of receiving an interview, which kind of suggests that maybe the CV needs a little bit of work on there. So, anything you could kind of do to help me.
Absolutely. Happy to help, Andy.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
That's a good shout. We've got a written question, Sarah, from Candace that says, what is, first of all, Sarah, can you just call out your email address?
Yeah, absolutely. It's Sarah, SARAH, and it's and then it's Kate and Co, so KATEANDCO.com. I can pop it in the chat actually for you also.
Even better, thank you. And Candace is okay. Well, you might be busy after this, Sarah. Again,
That's all right.
Thank you so much. Candace is asking, what's the best structure for tell me about yourself? That's a very broad question, but have you got...
You mean in an interview setting?
Let's
so, yeah, sorry. So if somebody said to me in an interview, so if I knew that my client was going to ask one of my candidates, tell me about yourself, I would always say to my candidate, you start professional. Until they say what do you do in your home time? So if they say, tell me about yourself. So I will always say, well, I've worked at Kate & Co now for the last 15 years. I've always worked in recruitment. My key achievements in this role have been, I've done this, 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 and this. I'm now looking for a role when I can expand myself. So I would always start professionally with a tell me about yourself question, because it can be quite ambiguous and it's caught people out many times when, people have gone to interview and said, oh, tell me about yourself. Oh, well, I was shopping in Primark on Saturday. They don't care, what they mean, and what I would always say 10 out of 10 times is you'll always start professionally, and you start with what you're doing right now and you work your way back.
Fantastic. Great advice. Okay, we've got time for perhaps one more question before we start wrapping up. Would anyone else like to, you're welcome, Candace, would anyone else like to proffer offer up a question at all. Otherwise, I'm just going to start wrapping up now. So first of all, Sarah, huge thanks for setting aside some of your time, not just today, but actually collaborating with me over the last couple of days to put something like this together. Huge thanks from me, and I hope from everyone else on the call and everyone else watching this. That's really generous of you. Thank you. I'm just going to sum up. Please feel free to leap in, Sarah, if I miss anything out. Getting back into the workplace, what have we learned? For me, it's be really clear about what role you want and what role can you realistically secure based on your previous and most recent work experience. So don't try, I don't mind what the work is, I just want to do something. That's not going to work in today's environment. Be specific. Update your LinkedIn to reflect your CV. Focus on your achievements rather than just stating facts. What did you achieve for that employer in terms of saving them cost, in terms of improving their business, increasing revenue or profits, or working with customers? What did you actually achieve? That will take some thinking about, but it's worth thinking. And also bragging rights. This is your chance, your only chance probably to show off, do it in the right way, but absolutely it's your opportunity, what we call in sales, we would call bragging rights. On your CV and letter, it must be tailored, no waffle. Sarah's been very polite, but I'm going to call it no BS. Okay, everyone's going to know what that means. No waffle, no BS, no excess baggage, if you like. Just poke them in the eye. You focus on your achievements. If there's numbers that you can relate to around budgets, around cost savings, around revenue improvement, let's have that. If you're in sales, let's talk about deal sheets. If you've been in a sales management role, talk about the number of your team, the quota that you're managing, etc. Over performance numbers, things like that, things that will resonate with a hiring manager. And the interview, the actual interview itself, then I would say you need to, is it in person or is it over Zoom? Either which way, make sure you're ready to go, like at 11 o'clock today, ready to go at 11 o'clock. So if it's in person, make sure you know your way there, you've rehearsed, you've time to park your car or get from the train station, because it's very hard to recover if you're late. For me, there's virtually no excuse for being late, and particularly if it's over Zoom. So if it's technology, make sure there's no updates to be done. Make sure you log on a few minutes beforehand so all that technology stuff is settled and you're ready to go at 11 o'clock. If the employer or the hiring manager's late, that's kind of their prerogative, but you've got to show that you can manage yourself to be on time. That's absolutely vital. Next thing is be punctual. So talked about that. Dress code, no pajamas. I don't care what you wear down below, so to speak, as long as you're wearing a shirt. I am wearing trousers, just for anyone that's wondering, but make sure you're wearing, for me, an open collar shirt, for Sarah, whatever it happens to be, but appropriate to the role that you're applying for. Shake hands, nope. And always have a question, and the question should be not something you can find out on the internet, but something that's asking for that hiring manager's insight, opinion. If nothing else, you'll learn something about that company, but shows that you've done some research, pays them a huge compliment that you've invested time in that process. Sarah, is there anything else that you'd like to add to that before we?
No, nothing. I mean, it's pretty much a whistle-stop tour, because we could talk about this subject for hours and hours, and I know that people have very specific questions to themselves. So I hope we've given enough breadth today, just on, that there are jobs out there. There really are jobs out there, and we're working hard. We've spoken to thousands of clients and thousands of candidates since March to understand, their challenges and their frustrations. And some clients out there are feeling really, really positive. So just keep going, guys. Keep going. Speak to as many people as you possibly can. And as I say, I'm here to help if you need me.
Thank you. Thanks ever so much. So guys, for everyone, and girls, of course, for everyone that's on the call, can I just ask you in the chat box, now that we've kind of been through the process for about 50 minutes or so, how are you feeling now around your job search, should we say confidence level, if you like? What were you like at the beginning of the call? How do you feel right now? If you could just see a few numbers going in there, that would be really, really helpful. While you're doing that, let me just tell you, I do something on generally sales related, and interviews is about selling, whether you're in sales or not. It's about selling. You're selling yourself. So next week, this time, I'm going to be talking about managing conflict with clients and other stakeholders. And if any of you got children, I'll tell you how to manage conflict with teenagers as well. And I've got 4, which is why I look like this. If that's something that interests you, 11 o'clock next Wednesday, I'll send you the link. If you've registered for this, you'll get a link to the recording anyway. I'll include the details on there. I do lots of stuff, so look at the YouTube channel. There's lots of free stuff and resources on there. It just remains to be to say thank you so much for everyone for logging on. I think it's been a really valuable session. Thanks once again to Sarah. If there are any other questions, by all means fire them to me, Keith at salesmarvel.co.uk, or to Sarah, which is Sarah at kateandco.com. Again, if you've got a few seconds, you can save the chat box on this call. But thank you very much. Have a brilliant rest of the day, and good luck with your job search activities. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye now.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys.